Welcome back to U.S. and World Politics Decoded, the channel that peels back the layers of political rhetoric to reveal the uncomfortable truths. Tonight, we're diving headfirst into a proposal that's sending shockwaves through communities and igniting a firestorm on Capitol Hill. We're talking about Donald Trump's audacious plan to slap a tax on remittances, the hard-earned money immigrants send back to their families in their home countries. Is this a masterstroke to bolster the American economy, as some might claim? Or is it a thinly veiled punitive strike against immigrant families, a move that reeks of xenophobia and economic desperation? Fasten your seatbelts, because we're about to dissect a policy that could redefine what it means to pursue the American dream, and potentially what it means to be an American. The battle lines are being drawn, and the first shots have been fired. A significant block of Hispanic members of Congress is sounding the alarm, urging, no, demanding that this remittance tax proposal be stopped in its tracks. They're painting a grim picture, a scenario where families already struggling to make ends meet both here and abroad are pushed further into poverty. But let's be real, in the high-stakes game of American politics, is this genuine concern or just another calculated move to score political points against a perennial bogeyman? The core of the issue is Trump's renewed interest in targeting remittances. Now, this isn't a brand new idea from the Trump playbook. We heard whispers and outright declarations of this during his previous administration, often tied to his signature promise of building a wall on the U.S.-Mexico border, and in his infamous claim, making Mexico pay for it. The logic then, as it appears now, is to leverage these financial flows, which are substantial, by the way. We're talking billions of dollars annually. The argument from the Trump camp, though often cloaked in nationalist rhetoric, usually centers on a few key, and let's be frank, controversial pillars. First, the idea of America First, that money earned in America should, as much as possible, benefit America. Taxing remittances, in this view, is a way to recoup some of that wealth. Second, there's the implicit and sometimes explicit suggestion that these funds are somehow illicit or are draining the U.S. economy. It's a narrative that plays well with a certain segment of the electorate, one that feels left behind or believes immigrants are getting a free ride. And third, it's often presented as a tool to pressure other countries, particularly those from which many immigrants hail, on issues like immigration control or trade. If you want your citizens to keep sending money home without a hefty U.S. tax, then you better play ball with our demands. It's hardball politics, to say the least. But let's look at what the Hispanic congressional members are screaming from the rooftops. Their primary argument, and it's a powerful one, is that this tax is fundamentally unjust and disproportionately harms low-income immigrant workers and their vulnerable families abroad. These aren't oligarchs wiring millions to offshore accounts. We're largely talking about construction workers, agricultural laborers, domestic staff, people working grueling hours, often in jobs that American-born citizens are unwilling to do, sending $50, $100, maybe a few $100s at a time to cover basic necessities like food, medicine, and education for their loved ones back home. Think about it. For many families in Latin America, the Caribbean, and other parts of the developing world, these remittances are not just a bonus. They are a lifeline. They are the difference between a child going to school or going hungry, between a grandparent getting life-saving medication or succumbing to illness. To slap a significant tax on these transfers, and we've heard figures thrown around, sometimes even double-digit percentages, would be devastating. The Congress members argue that this isn't just an economic issue, it's a moral one. They see it as a policy that punishes hard work and further marginalizes communities that are already facing significant challenges, including discrimination and limited access to resources. They also point out the potential economic blowback. If sending money becomes prohibitively expensive, what happens? People might turn to informal, unregulated channels, which are riskier and harder to track. This could actually reduce transparency and potentially open doors for illicit activities, the very opposite of what proponents might claim they want. Moreover, they raise a crucial point. Many of these immigrant workers are taxpayers in the United States. They pay income tax, sales tax, and property tax indirectly through rent. So to then impose an additional tax on the money they choose to send to their families feels like a double dip, a punitive measure specifically targeting them because of their national origin or immigration status. Is this fiscal responsibility, or is it fiscal discrimination? Now let's play devil's advocate for a moment, or at least try to understand the counter-narrative, however controversial it may be. Could there be an argument, however unpalatable to some, that a remittance tax is a legitimate tool for a sovereign nation to control capital outflows? Some economists, though certainly not all, might argue that in certain contexts, managing how much money leaves a country can be part of a broader economic strategy. However, applying this to the relatively small individual transfers of working-class immigrants is a far cry from regulating massive corporate capital flight. And what about the claim that this could somehow force other countries to cooperate more on U.S. policy demands? This is where the argument gets particularly murky and, frankly, enters the realm of international strong-arming. Is it fair or effective to essentially hold the poorest citizens of another country hostage to achieve geopolitical aims? Critics would argue that this is not diplomacy. It's coercion, and it's likely to breed resentment rather than cooperation. It could also destabilize the very countries the U.S. might want to see become more stable and prosperous, potentially leading to more irregular migration in the long run. An ironic and self-defeating outcome. The timing of this renewed push for a remittance tax is also deeply significant. We are in an election year, or approaching one, where immigration and border security are, as always, red-hot topics. Is this proposal a genuine policy initiative, or is it red meat for the base? A way to energize voters who respond to tough-on-immigration rhetoric. Politics is a cynical game, and it's hard not to see the electoral calculations at play here. The Hispanic caucus and other opponents are not just raising moral and economic objections, they are also likely to explore legal challenges if such a tax were to be implemented. Questions around its constitutionality, its potential for discrimination based on national origin, and the practicalities of its enforcement are all likely to be brought before the courts. Imagine the bureaucratic nightmare of trying to differentiate between a remittance and, say, a payment for services or a gift to a non-family member abroad. The implementation alone could be a costly and chaotic mess. And let's not forget the potential impact on U.S. foreign relations. Many of the countries whose citizens would be most affected are U.S. allies or important regional partners. Imposing a tax that directly harms their people could strain diplomatic ties and undermine U.S. influence. Is a few $1 billion in potential tax revenue worth alienating entire nations and jeopardizing broader foreign policy objectives? The controversy also lies in the very definition of this money. Is it U.S. money just because it was earned here? Or does it belong to the individual who earned it, who then has the right to dispose of it as they see fit, including sending it to support their family wherever they may be? This touches on fundamental questions of property rights and individual liberty. Supporters of the tax might argue that these workers are benefiting from U.S. infrastructure U.S. systems, and U.S. opportunities, and therefore, a portion of the money sent out should be reclaimed. But opponents would quickly counter that these workers are often in precarious situations, with limited access to benefits, and are contributing significantly through their labor and consumption. This isn't just a debate about dollars and cents. It's a debate about values. It's about what kind of country the United States wants to be. Is it a country that welcomes immigrants and acknowledges their contributions, even as it grapples with the complexities of immigration policy? Or is it a country that views immigrants, particularly those from certain regions, with suspicion and seeks to extract as much as possible from them? The narrative being pushed by Trump and his allies is one of sovereign right and economic self-interest. The narrative from the Hispanic Congress members and their allies is one of humanitarian concern, economic justice, and the potential for counterproductive consequences. Thank you for joining us on U.S. and World Politics Decoded. If you found this analysis insightful, or if it made you think, or even if it made you angry, then we've done our job. Please give this video a thumbs up, share it with others who aren't afraid to tackle the tough issues, and most importantly, subscribe to U.S. and World Politics Decoded. Don't forget to hit that notification bell so you never miss our deep dives into the policies that shape our world. Until next time, stay informed and stay critical.